Hi, welcome to my channel. I have a new story for you today.
I didn't cry when my daughter-in-law screamed, "Get out!" I didn't beg when my son looked away, unable to meet my eyes. I simply grabbed my purse and walked out of the house they thought was theirs. By the next morning, every bill, every lock, and every luxury they built their lives on stopped answering to them and started answering to me. "Just get out already. You're nothing but dead weight." My daughter-in-law, Melanie, shrieked across our sun-drenched kitchen. It was exactly 7:30 a.m. on a gray Tuesday morning in Seattle. I sat at the heavy oak table, my back straight as a needle, gripping my coffee mug. The steam hit my face, but I didn't take a sip. My son, Travis, stared silently at his newspaper as if he were carved from stone. Melanie was waving a manicured hand inches from my face. Her reason for the meltdown: I had dared to eat the organic granola she claimed was hers. Even though I was the one who had paid for the entire week's groceries, she called me a leech and a bottom feeder because I refused to hand over my Social Security check to fund the new designer sectional she wanted for the living room. I had lived in this house since my husband passed away 2 years ago. To Melanie and Travis, I was just the annoying old woman who did the dishes, folded the laundry, and kept her mouth shut. They had completely forgotten that legally, this house still belonged to me. In their minds, I was a helpless widow with nowhere to go. "You're a burden, Ruth. If you don't start playing by the rules, you'll find yourself in a state-run home faster than you can say." "Retirement," she hissed, leaning in so close I could smell her expensive perfume. I didn't waste words on her. I just watched her upper lip tremble with faux outraged entitlement. I wasn't a helpless woman. Before I retired, I had built a global logistics and supply chain firm from scratch and sold it years ago for $85 million. That money was tucked away in accounts they didn't even know existed. I had intentionally lived small, playing the part of the modest grandma to test their true characters. Well, the test results were currently screaming at me on the kitchen floor. I calmly set my cup down, stood up, and took my purse off the hook. No tears. No excuse. I'm a woman of numbers and logistics. When a system becomes corrupt, you cut off the supply. I gave Travis one last look, but he ducked his head. "I'm heading out," I said quietly. Melanie let out a smug laugh, thinking I was retreating to my room to cry. She had no idea this was the last second I would ever spend subsidizing her lifestyle. I sat in my car, a 10-year-old Lexus that was perfectly maintained and parked on a side street overlooking Lake Washington. I didn't need dramatic music. I just needed silence. My black notebook was open on the passenger seat. I'd been keeping records for years. For a decade. I'd propped Travis up. First, it was grad school. Then the down payment for the house in the Highlands. Then, the constant emergencies, whenever Melanie's lifestyle outpaced their budget. Totaling it up, it pumped over $500,000 into my son's life while pretending I had to pinch pennies. Melanie thought I was poor because I bought my clothes at Kohl's and preferred gardening to spa days. That morning, I didn't call a lawyer. In the world of infrastructure, there are ways to settle things without a courtroom, if you own the grid. I opened my banking app on my tablet. I was the primary account holder and the sole owner of the household account that handled the vitals. Electricity, gas, water, high-speed internet, and the HOA fees. Melanie had a secondary card tied to my credit. With 3 calm clicks, I revoked her authorization and canceled the recurring payments for the landscaper and the cleaning service. It was my private capital, and I got to decide whose life it fueled. Next, I hit the hardware store, I bought 3 high-end smart locks for the exterior doors. My plan wasn't emotional. It was structural. If they wanted me out of their life, they were going to learn what it felt like when the foundation vanished. I didn't feel angry. Just the cool precision of a woman who had spent 30 years optimizing supply chains. Melanie wanted control of the house. She could have it along with every unpaid bill that was about to land on her doorstep. When I returned that afternoon, the house was quiet. They were both at work. I went into the basement to the main water shutoff and the circuit breaker. I didn't do anything illegal. I simply reset the smart home hub to my private profile. Secured by a 24-digit code, the heat would stay perfect in my wing of the house. The rest of the place was about to experience the unfiltered freshness of a Pacific Northwest winter. Around 6:30 p.m., I heard Travis's SUV pull into the driveway. Melanie was laughing loudly in the foyer, likely already measuring my room for the walk-in closet she planned to build once I was disposed of. I was upstairs in my armchair, reading a book on industrial management. Suddenly, a scream pierced the silence. Travis. Why are the lights off? And why is it so freezing in here? Melanie was frantically tapping the wall-mounted tablet, but the screen stayed black. Travis was downstairs in the basement, cursing at the fuse box. A moment later, there was a frantic knock on my door. Travis looked haggard, his tie crooked. Mom, did you do something to the router? The Wi-Fi is down, and the smart home app is throwing a system error. Melanie's losing it because she can't stream her show. I looked over the rim of my reading glasses. I'd set up a small tea station in my room and had a space heater running on a separate dedicated circuit I'd had installed years ago. I canceled my private subscriptions. Travis. Since Melanie made it very clear this morning that I'm no longer welcome, I saw no reason to continue paying for the internet or the luxury utilities. Travis stammered. But I have emails to send tonight, and the water is ice cold. I gave a tiny shrug. I suppose you'll have to set up your own accounts in your own names using your own money. I'm sure you two can handle it. Right then, Melanie burst into the room, her face contorted. What is this childish crap? Ruth, turn the internet back on. I don't pay to live like it's the dark ages. I stood up slowly. I was 5 inches shorter than her, but the stillness in the room gave me a weight she couldn't push against. You don't pay rent. Melania. You live off my grace. Since that's over, I suggest you put on a parka. It's going to be a long, cold night. She opened her mouth to snap back, but something in my expression shut her up. For the first time, she realized the old lady wasn't playing the game anymore. The next 3 days were a masterpiece of quiet organization, while Melanie and Travis scrambled to set up new utility contracts, which in a city like Seattle doesn't happen overnight. I packed my essentials. I didn't need noise or a big scene. I had contacted a high-end moving crew weeks ago for a special project. While they were at work, my guys moved my antique furniture and personal treasures out the back. Every time Melanie treated me with contempt in the kitchen, I responded with a polite good morning, or a short if you say so. I didn't take the bait. I just watched them fail. Thursday morning. The floor fell out. Travis was sitting at the kitchen island staring at a stack of mail. They were notices. I had rescinded the authorizations for the homeowner's insurance and the property tax escrow. Mom, you've always handled this, he said, his voice wobbling between anger and panic. Correct, I said, pouring my tea. I handled it as long as I was part of this family. But since you called me a burden, I've decided to unburden you. You are now officially the sole adults responsible for this property. Melanie walked in wearing a thick robe, shivering. We'll find a way without you. You bitter old witch. Just go find some cheap motel to rot in if you think this is going to impress us. I paused. A motel. They were still thinking so small. They pictured me in some run-down roadside inn. I was thinking about the estate in Carmel by the sea I'd purchased months ago. A stunning stone cottage right on the cliffs. Discreet and private. I placed my cup in the dishwasher but didn't hit start. Good luck with the dishes. Melania. And remember, the insurance policy expires Monday. I grabbed my keys and walked out. I didn't leave a tearful note. I just left a financial void that was about to swallow them whole. The drive down the coast took a couple of days, and by the time I saw the Pacific crashing against the rocks of Monterey, I felt a lightness I hadn't known since my husband died. I wasn't the poor widow from Seattle. I was Ruth, the woman who built an empire out of thin air. When I reached Carmel, the heavy wrought iron gates of my villa opened automatically. The house was a dream of glass, cedar, and stone. There was no Melanie here to scream about crumbs, and no Travis who was too weak to stand up for his mother. Iset, my suitcase in the foyer. The silence here was worth every penny. My phone in my pocket was buzzing non-stop. 45 missed calls from Travis. 20 hateful texts from Melanie calling me a traitor. I took the device, turned it completely off, and put it in a dark drawer in the study. I didn't need a digital tether to their greed. I stepped out onto the terrace. The air was salty, and the wind whipped through the cypress trees. Back in Seattle, the chaos would be peaking. Without my monthly subsidies, their entire lifestyle was a house of cards in a hurricane. They had financed their luxury SUVs and their parties on the back of a woman they treated like trash. I breathed in deep, savoring the sovereignty. Tomorrow, I'd welcome my new housekeeper and take my first walk on the beach. Travis and Melanie had their chance to be part of this life. They chose greed, so they got the consequence. The bitter chill of their own incompetence. In Seattle, the facade crumbled faster than even I expected. As my former neighbor, Mrs. Gable, later told me over the phone, there was a shouting match in the driveway when the landscapers walked off the job, and the cleaning crew left their keys in the mailbox because the checks stopped clearing. Travis tried desperately to find me through my old business associates, but no one would give him the time of day. I spent my days filling the Carmel villa with fine art and enjoying the ocean in all its moods. I wasn't acting out of cruelty, but out of a principle of logistical restoration. I had taught Travis how to optimize processes for years, but I'd failed to teach him how to lead an That was my mistake, and I was correcting it now. On the 6th day of my freedom, I turned my phone on for 10 minutes. My voicemail was full. One message from Travis sounded particularly broken. Mom, please. The house account is overdrawn. The bank says we're in default. Melanie won't stop crying and says she's leaving me if I don't fix this. I typed a short, precise reply. Travis, you are a VP at a major insurance firm. Melania works in marketing. You have 2 salaries. Use them to fund your lives. I am officially retired, and I'm managing my own finances now. Nothing more. No location. No apology for my escape. I looked out the window as the mailman delivered a bag of fresh Kona coffee beans from my favorite roaster. Life was so simple when you stopped paying for people who didn't respect you. Travis needed to learn that freedom always comes with a bill, and Melanie needed to learn that you don't bite the hand that feeds you, especially when that hand has the power to take the whole table away. 2 weeks after I vanished, the inevitable happened. I'm not sure how they did it. Travis probably badgered my old bookkeeper until she let the word Carmel slip. Regardless, they showed up at my gate one morning. Travis looked 20 years older. His suit was rumpled and his eyes were bloodshot. Melanie was wearing massive sunglasses, but she couldn't hide the way her hands were shaking. They stared through the bars at the magnificent villa and the perfectly manicured grounds. I walked slowly down the path to the gate, a mug of hot Earl Grey in my hand. I didn't open it. I stopped 6 feet back. "What brings you two all the way down here?" I asked. My voice as cool as the Pacific in November. Melanie practically exploded. "You're living here in total luxury. In a palace. While we're at home not knowing how we're going to make the next Mercedes payment. You lied to us. You're filthy rich and you let us sit in the dirt." I looked at her unblinking. "I'm sitting in a house I bought with my own labor." "Melania, you're sitting in a house whose mortgage I subsidized for years." "Where exactly is the lie?" Travis stepped forward, his hand gripping the cold metal of the gate. "Mom, please. We didn't know how much money you actually had. If we had known, we would have treated you so differently." I cut him off instantly. "Then you would have been nicer. Then I wouldn't have been dead weight. You would have respected me for my bank account." "Travis. Not for the fact that I'm your mother." He lowered his head in shame. Melanie tried one last desperate threat. "We're family. You can't do this. We'll sue you." I gave a short laugh. "On what grounds? That I stopped giving you presents? Good luck with that." I turned around and started walking back to the house. I heard Melanie kick the gate and scream. So, I just tapped the remote in my pocket to activate the lawn. Sprinklers. A fine, cold mist enveloped them. A silent reminder that their time in my life had expired. After their pathetic showing in Carmel, I knew I had to take the final step. The house in Seattle was legally in my name only. Travis had a right of occupancy written into the deed. But it was tied to a condition my late husband had foresightedly included. The right existed only as long as I was also a registered resident. Since I had officially moved my primary residence to California, his claim was void. I didn't sell the house to some faceless developer. I contacted a local foundation that provides housing for single mothers in crisis. The price was fair, but the condition was ironclad. The handover had to happen within 30 days, and the property had to be vacant. I sent Travis a copy of the notarized sales agreement via certified mail. No personal note. Just the date he had to hand over the keys to the foundation. 2 days later, my landline rang. Travis sounded completely destroyed. "Where are we supposed to go?" "Mom, we have no savings for a new security deposit. Melanie lost her job because she's a nervous wreck and keeps making mistakes." I sat in my library watching the clouds roll in. I have a small condo on the outskirts of Tacoma. "Travis. It's in one of my rental buildings. 2 bedrooms. Functional. Clean. I'll let you move in. But at the standard market rate, you will sign a regular lease, provide a deposit, and pass a credit check." There was a long silence. 2 bedrooms. But Melanie's wardrobe alone. Melanie will have to downsize, I said firmly. Or she can find her own path. It's your move. Travis. Start working, or go down with her. The move was a logistical feat. Though this time I didn't lift a finger. Melanie tried to sneak out some of the expensive antiques from the big house. But since I had all the original receipts and had sent a professional inventory team to oversee the pack-out, she failed miserably. The furniture went into storage in California. And they moved into the small condo with only the essentials. It was a solid brick building. But it was light years away from the prestige of the Highlands. 3 weeks later, I flew up to Seattle to supervise the final handover to the foundation. I saw the young mothers touring the property with tears in their eyes. To them, this was a fresh start. Before I headed back to the airport, I drove through that neighborhood in Tacoma. I didn't stop. I saw Travis from a distance carrying heavy grocery bags from a discount store. He wasn't wearing a designer suit anymore. He was in a simple rain jacket. He looked exhausted. But for the first time in his life, he looked like a man carrying his own weight. I saw Melanie standing at the window of the small condo. Her face looked bitter. That was the price of her greed. I didn't feel a surge of triumph. Just the deep satisfaction of a woman who had balanced her books. I had cut the emotional dead weight and given my son the only thing he had left a chance to grow through real work. I sent him one last text. The first step into reality is the hardest, but it's the only one that counts. Do the work. Travis. His reply came hours later. I'm starting to get it. Thank you. It was the first time in 10 years he'd said thank you without reaching for my checkbook. Today, I live my life in Carmel, by my own rules. My firm is run by capable executives. My assets are safely invested. And I volunteer my time with the foundation now occupying my old house. I learned the hard way that generosity without boundaries isn't love. It's a form of self-destruction. If you give everything without demanding respect, you don't raise a family. You raise an appetite. Travis comes to visit me once a month now. He takes the train. He doesn't expect me to send a car for him. Melanie flatly refuses to set foot in California, which provides me with an enormous sense of peace. Travis and I often sit on the terrace, drinking tea and talking about the weather or his progress at work. He doesn't ask for money anymore. Instead, he tells me with a hint of pride that he finally understood and paid his first utility bill on his own. He pays his rent on time to my property manager. I often stand on the cliffs and watch the tide change the shoreline. The ocean is relentless. It takes everything that isn't deeply rooted. That's how it was with my family. The lies, the arrogance, and the fake facade were washed away. What's left is a small but honest core. I'm no longer the invisible woman cleaning up other people's messes. I am Ruth, a woman who knows her worth and defends it with a mix of steel and justice. The freedom here tastes like the sea air, sometimes biting and cold, but it cleanses the soul of everything that isn't real. I am finally free, and that luxury is priceless.